All right, so this actual story is a story that I came across just the other day and I found intriguing. And it relates to a national park in the United States that I have not yet got the good pleasure of visiting yet, but I've got it on my list. It's Yellowstone. And something very, very interesting happened in 1995 when they introduced the wolves into the national park. And what is so intriguing here, and I don't know if you've ever heard this story, but it's sometimes referred to as how wolves change the course of rivers. What they found is there was a cascade of events that occurred because of that one thing of introducing the wolves into the environment. And this is what it looked like. First of all, obviously the wolves were introduced into the environment, and because of that, it actually changed the behavior of the elks living in that space. They were very cautious about getting cornered into, certain canyons or river courses where they couldn't escape if there was a wolf attack. And so because of that, in those regions, the wildlife started to proliferate. They had more of the aspen, more of the willows start to proliferate. And because of that, then the birds came back to the habitat. Beavers had more access to resources and tools to build their little dams. And the ground was was stabilized in the process, so that during floods things started to change. And the end result is, in some instances, it didn't just change the ecosystem, it actually changed the physical geography of that region. What an incredible thing. And it wasn't anticipated, but wolves effectively led to this downstream effect of streams, rivers changing their course. Now, this effect is sometimes referred to as trophic cascade or a keystone effect or a leverage effect, or another word for it sometimes is a keystone habit. And essentially, it's asking that question of, what is the one ring that rules them all, to use the Lord of the Rings speak. What's the one thing? What's the one trigger point that actually might lead to this cascade of a whole new way of doing things? And I thought about how this relates to behavior change in both downward and upward ways. Let's think about a downward example of what we call a downward cascade. And so this is a time where that little tiny pinky toe, so vulnerable, sitting on the outside of your foot just there. And I literally about 2 weeks ago kicked mine at night time. I was stumbling around, going to the bathroom, and my little toe collected the side of a chair, and it hurt, and it still hurts. But you know what happens from that one little tiny pinky is that all of a sudden you take the weight off that. And because of that, now you're loading up the other side, which results in a little bit more of knee pain, and then your hip and your lower back sore. And because your back sore, your upper back starts to tweak. And then there's this, effect on fatigue and frustration and all the like, all originating from that one little tiny pinky toe. How problematic this is. So, this whole idea of this downstream effect of one small event cascading, having this sort of almost not cataclysmic, but this very marked impact. And of course, it can happen in the other way as well. Something as simple as, for example, choosing not to engage with a screen for an hour or two before you go to bed. What does that mean? Well, you sleep better. Therefore, you have more energy when you wake up in the morning. You're therefore more inclined to move. Because of that, it can help you make better choices because you're feeling better, moods up, and then all of a sudden you have this overall greater sense of well-being. And so I'm intrigued by this whole idea of this trophic cascade, this keystone effect. And that leads to a question. To what extent have you experienced this in your life? And how might you leverage that? So here are our reflection questions for this month. First of all, have you ever experienced a downward cascade in your lifestyle habits due to a single, seemingly small keystone event? I know I have. I can think of several examples of that. And then, not to dwell on the negative, but to turn it to the positive, have you ever experienced an upward cascade in your lifestyle habits due to just, once again, one single, seemingly small keystone effect? What's the one thing, the one switch that may have turned on the lights and made things a lot brighter for you? And then our final question, what's one thing you could do this month to perhaps trigger one of these upward trophic cascades? So I hope you enjoy reflecting on that and chatting together about these reflection questions.